Hello, thank you for joining us for another episode of AI Coach. Today we have Kathy Salata, who is a highly experienced college professor, business communications expert, and corporate trainer. She currently serves as the CEO of Dynamic Solutions, providing expert guidance and training to individuals and organizations seeking to improve their communication skills. In addition, she's a communications and public speaking instructor at Mount San Antonio College and University of California, the Irvine Extension. With over 2 decades of experience in the field, Kathy is committed to helping her students and clients communicate effectively in both personal and professional contexts. Please welcome Kathy Salata. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Jared. I really appreciate it. It's great being here.
Excellent. So we met through a Slack, and I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. So what inspired you to become a college professor and a corporate trainer?
That is a great question. And I did not see that as part of my future.
Oh.
I went to school for marketing and I was dead set working in marketing. I really wanted to work for Coca-Cola or Disney. Back in those days, you wanted to work for a big company.
Right.
And I was working for Verizon at the time and going at night for my MBA at UC Irvine. And I was working in the marketing team. And they needed a corporate trainer for their sales division. The headquarters was in Texas. They wanted to create a California division. And I just caught the teaching bug from that. It was an intensive 1-month class that students would come from all over the country. And I discovered that I like being behind the scenes and let other people fulfill their dreams. And so it just came through happenstance that I got that corporate training position. And then I loved it so much that I decided to go into the college realm. And that's what I'm doing right now.
So you have a business degree. Do you also have a communications degree or? Yeah.
No, the only communications degree that I have is through Toastmasters. I've been a member for years. I'm currently the president of my local chapter.
Excellent.
And it has changed my life. It really has.
That is great. Okay. So what are some of the most important skills that you teach to like business communication courses, would you say?
That is great. I consider communication a superpower. And I remember when I first joined Toastmasters, I knew that public speaking was probably the biggest fear of most Americans, most people around the world. And if I could conquer that, I would be a superhero. So I decided to step out of my comfort zone, participate a lot in meetings, lead meetings, which got me elevated within the company. I became very active in Toastmasters, and any opportunity to speak publicly, I took advantage of that. And so I think that communication is essential. But with all of technology, and it's only increasing the amount of technology that's in our lives day in and day out, I think that adaptability, critical thinking, and the ability to think on your feet are extremely important. I also come up with creative solutions. I think a lot of times people get so set, this is my desired outcome, and I'm not willing to budge at all. I think that is not very, it doesn't lead to a good environment. So I do whatever I can to teach those skills. I have my students do a lot of scenarios where I put them in real life situations and just give them minimal guidance and let them work their way through it. And they always impress me each and every time.
Right. So you help them to not be too locked into a single outcome beforehand, being flexible.
Exactly. For example, last week, we just had a little debate about whether McDonald's should keep the multi-line system, which is what they currently have, or go to a single line system. And, a lot of them chose one or the other, but there's so many other solutions that are out there beyond those two.
So how is artificial intelligence changing the way that you approach these type of tasks? I mean, like I said, you and I met on a Udemy Slack page. So maybe we could start there.
Well, I love technology and I embrace it. One of the things I teach my students is adaptability and change is constant. You're constantly going to change. And to me, artificial intelligence is just another tool. And what I love about it is I love small businesses and entrepreneurship and all of that. And I think it puts us on a level playing field. I've worked for larger companies where they have a lot of research and development. These small companies don't have that. But now everyone has that access to that information. And I see it as a tool very similar to back in the old days when calculators came out. I'm sure that math professors were saying, "Oh my goodness, what are we going to do?" And look, it just changed. Life is about evolution.
Right. I mean, like, so they needed slide rules in order to do the particular type of maths that yielded those high level results. But now those are some skills that could be taught to middle schoolers, which was, and like to get them up on that one. And another analogy that I like going for is how people were worried about chess engines. And I think that's really, so when chess came out, there was this really famous match between Deep Blue and Garry Kasparov, the #1 chess player at the time. And that's when Deep Blue beat Kasparov. That was the last time that a human, or that was the first time that a human was beat by a computer, and the last time that they would ever, like it would never happen again. So it would always happen that the computer would win. And people were worried that that was going to lead to, just apathy within the game. Because, like, why do you need to play? You already have something that could win. But today, we probably have perhaps the best chess player that's ever existed. And it's probably because the engines exist, because they show strategies and moves that humans don't think about.
Oh, that is a great analogy. I'm going to steal that from you.
Yeah,
wonderful.
I'm spreading it. Yeah, I love the credit too, because like me and my son love playing chess, and we actually follow chess, and it's more popular now than it was when Deep Blue was playing Garry Kasparov.
Yes, so I remember during COVID, Amazon ran out of chess sets. So you're right.
I did not know that. That's amazing. So let's get back to like business communication. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing businesses in terms of effective communication?
Well, I see two huge problems, both in professional life and personal life, and that is lack of listening, because we're always anticipating what we're going to say. I see that as a huge problem. And I noticed that I don't know what's going on. I believe that with the way the economy is going, there's not that internal communication that employees desire. And employees, we are the representatives of the company. We're kind of the product of the company. Mm-hmm. And when we don't know what's going on, when we're not empowered, when we don't know how we contribute to the goals of the corporation, it leads us to feel like we're not contributing. And that's why we do the Great Resignation and the quiet quitting and all of that.
Right. So that sounds like internal communication, right? Like like I've seen plenty of people use ChatGPT for external communication, for generating marketing and public relations. How can AI help with perhaps internal communication, like the things that you're talking about?
What you know what I love about it is something like AI can summarize a meeting or give all of the things that go on in a high level meeting and distribute it to the people that are going to be doing the work. So I just find it such a worthwhile contribution to any organization to be able to get rid of all of that administrative work so you can work on what you went into business to begin with.
Right. Like Udemy seems particularly suited for things like that. Especially the application during Zoom meetings. It just keeps on getting better and better as far as the tools and analytics that it can provide you. I'm still waiting on the little analytic that tells people, it's like, oh, did you know that you interrupt women more than men? They promised me that's coming. They promised me it's coming. Um,
Oh, I
like,
love
I
it.
mean, is that something that has ever come up in your training about the ways that different people interact with each other and how some might be a little overbearing and maybe technology can help with that?
What you know that is a great point. All of those connections, and I believe that awareness is half the battle. As a
Hmm.
Toastmaster, we count our ahs and ums,
Uh-huh.
not to bring attention to them, so you're aware, so you can use those pauses effectively. And we live in Southern California. We are very gifted to have such a diverse audience.
Yeah,
And I think that AI can really benefit. I'm trying to learn Spanish right now,
me
and
too.
I see this as something that can assist me. So I feel a little bit more confident when I'm communicating. And
Hmm.
some of my English language learner students, it just gives you a little bit of confidence because can you imagine how frustrating it must be to have a thought and not be able to effectively articulate that? So I see AI as just being such a great tool for anyone in regards to that.
Yeah, I'm also trying to learn Spanish, and I come into that experience quite often where it's simple things like wanting to order food. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't learn the word for that one particular fruit. And oh no, and now am I going to have to use a generic term for it? And so I know that's a small sample of it. I can't imagine like being immersed in that feeling all the time. And maybe that would be a good thing if I did, it'd be a good experience to kind of get that um, sort of thing under my belt. So what do you do to help like students and clients overcome those type of communication barriers, the like language differences and cultural misunderstandings?
It's a great question, and it varies depending on who I'm speaking with. I see a lot of times where um, a manager would want something one particular way and not be at all flexible in giving the guidance to their employees of what their parameters are. And I think that just again, awareness, effectively communicating your ideas and sharing exactly what outcomes you want and
Hmm.
allow them to take their own direction. I kind of look at it like GPS.
Mm,
I might take a freeway to get to my destination. Someone else might take a side street. One's not better than the other.
right.
So allow your employees, you hired them, you have faith in them. So allow them to communicate. And I also find dealing with customers, empowering your employees so that they don't have to go up to 5 levels of management. And I think artificial intelligence and effective communication can do just that.
Yeah, excellent. Um, so the let's say somebody is just trying to improve their public speaking skills, right? They're not necessarily in a college course or something like that. What would you suggest they do? Where would you point them?
That's another great question. And the number one thing is practice, practice, practice. And I know everyone says, "Oh, I'll wait till after this class or after I'm done with this project, I'll get
Right.
working on it." You will never be 100% ready. So just jump in there. And one thing that I always challenge people to do is when you want to improve yourself, just like if you wanted to, as a New Year's resolution, wanted to lose weight, have an accountability partner to
Mm.
say, "Hey, you said you were going to give a speech last Friday and at that meeting. Did you do that?" And I think that
Ah,
really holds people accountable and practice. And top basketball players, top football players don't just go on the game, they practice. It's a
right.
skill that you need to develop, just like anything else. And what's really fun is when you get to that point, and you might be able to connect with this. Do you remember when you first learned how to drive a car? You had to remember, okay, I have to turn on the ignition, look in the rear view mirror, look left and right, and now you do it, and you'll be at home, and you don't even remember how you got home because
Right.
it's so muscle memory now, and you can do that with public speaking. I love Toastmasters. I'm a big advocate of that. Or I know a lot of senior centers, libraries have these.
Ah,
What I love about it is you're with peers that are also trying to learn and grow with you, and they're supportive. They're supportive. And that's what, if you have a group of supporters, you can rule the world, basically.
yeah. So AI, like usually, offers a unique experience where it still gives you a level of feedback. And that's one of the things that my students have been telling me that they love about it, where automatically it just gives you how many verbal fillers you had, non-inclusive language, how fast you're talking. There's something about having a judgment-free report back to you. Have you found that that is has been received well from your clients and students?
Oh, absolutely. They love it. Awareness, half the battle. And that, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
it's not me saying this. It's a computer. There's no judgment there. So just knowledge for you.
Mhm. And have you seen, like, compare that to before you came into this tool? What would you say the difference as far as the learning curve is?
The learning curve for the tool or for communication?
Before you had the tool, just like before, like when you're using it and you're telling them, okay, you have a significant number of verbal fillers, we're going to need to work on that, versus having Udemy saying you had 27 of them in 2 minutes. Like, is there a difference in how people
Oh,
respond and learn and adapt?
absolutely. Absolutely. At the university that I teach at, I teach to international students. And when I say something, if I give them feedback, they feel like the spotlight's on them. And I
Right.
can almost feel them want to go into a little fetal position ball because they're so embarrassed. Whereas the computer output, it's just subjective. I have nothing to do with this. I wasn't counting your ahs and ums. The computer was.
Yeah.
And again, it's that awareness that is just so helpful for both students and professionals.
One of the things that I have experienced is now I feel that those parts of the feedback are taken care of, and I can move on to other types of feedback. My energies can be spent elsewhere. Have you felt that, and what do you focus on now?
Oh, I love it. I feel the exact same way. I do not like administrative busy work. To
Right.
me, that is not why I became a professor. That's not why I went into the career that I went into. I want to be creative. I want to problem solve. I want to get things out of the ways of my students and the people that I work with. So I've been able to do things like offer public speaking workshops, focus a
Mm,
little bit more on my English language learning.
right.
And to me, it's almost like having an assistant. What a great assistant that we all have access to. And again, I love it. I just embrace this tool. I was so excited when it came out. There's
Yeah.
going to be some bugs, there's going to be some apprehension, but we can either move with the change or we can be steadfast and just be left behind.
Right. Right. So I found that Udemy is really good on the speaking end, and I'm discovering ChatGPT is really good on the preparation end. Like, what I mean by is before you ever say word one, because you have to do a little bit of thinking and preparing before you ever say word one. Even in impromptu, there's some level of preparation that you have to do. Have you discovered any unique tricks or tips? I don't know. First off, are you using
Oh,
ChatGPT for
yes,
yours?
I use ChatGPT. And you know what? I don't know if you remember when Wikipedia first came out and
Right.
students
Yes.
started to use Wikipedia. Well, ChatGPT is similar. There could garbage in, garbage out in some
Right.
instances. So you have to be critical. So last week I had my students grade a ChatGPT paper.
Ah.
And what they found was there was some redundancies, and the way that it was written, you could tell that it wasn't a human that was writing it. So
Right.
it's just a nice framework for you to use your creativity, deal with the creative solutions in the way that you do that. So I recommend it very highly.
No, it's my turn to steal from you. I think that is a great idea for an assignment, right? Where, yeah, grading it, and because so peer reviews are already great because they start seeing patterns that you see as well, and it kind of validates it. It's like, yes, that was a weak thesis statement. Yes, the organization is a little bit disorganized. But when when they see it and you see it, you're like, yeah, we're seeing the same thing. That sort of level of camaraderie and validation, I don't know, builds confidence and allows them to feel that they can do this. And yeah, it's a really good idea. So I'm going to steal
Yeah.
that for sure. Can you think of a time of like a really rewarding experience that you had as a professor or as a corporate trainer? Something
Well,
that story, yeah.
it was a communication. It was an entrepreneur class I was teaching,
Ah,
and my student was part of the Southern California consortium of entrepreneurs of the future. And she won for the entire Southern California. And she and I practiced her delivery for
ah,
weeks. And her passion just shone through. It was just spectacular. And it's this wonderful facility that it's a horse stables, and
oh,
they take underprivileged youth and have them care for the horses,
okay.
and it's this whole beautiful experience that is benefiting many people. And that is exactly why I left marketing and went into teaching. The pay, my friends told me that you're nuts because the pay was substantially less,
Yeah.
but the rewards are insurmountable compared to what I was getting before.
Well, I mean, that's a great example of like how, like technology isn't the end all be all of it. I mean, how do you balance teaching with traditional methods and incorporating technology and AI tools?
Well, I know a lot of my students rely on them. And I know that because when technology is down for whatever reason, their head explodes.
Oh yeah.
But what I love about it is during those times, I'll have them shut the computer down, all technology down. Let's work on some creative solutions. Let's brainstorm. Let's do teamwork. And that's the future. Whether we're working virtually, in hybrid, in person, we're going to be working in teams. We're going to be collaborating. We're going to be doing things like this. And
Mhm.
so we need to communicate effectively, use technology for what it's used for, a tool, not a replacement.
Right. So that seems to be what some naysayers have a hard time sort of wrapping their heads around. Because one of my interesting things is like all the labor that we're saving on what using these tools means that could be sort of parlayed into maybe serving more students, all right, or serving them better, right? And so like now that like that tool is taking care of counting your verbal fillers, the workshop that we're doing, which is not high tech, that is even more. Now we have time to do a workshop when before you had to go and write off on your own. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Time, I think, is even a bigger resource, a greater resource than money,
yeah.
financial. So the more time that we can allocate for our students or the professionals that we're working with, the better.
What are some ethical concerns that you have with the use of AI tools? Is there what do we need to be careful of, steer clear of?
That's a great question. Of course, I don't want it to replace my students' creativity. I don't want them to think, oh,
Right.
I'll just chat GPT. So that, of course, is critical. And then as a marketer, I always have the legal ramifications,
Mm,
copyright, plagiarism, all of those things coming into play. And I think the legal community is working on that as of right now. And I know a lot of people are very nervous about ChatGPT replacing workers. And I was at Walmart earlier today, and I noticed that they have self checkout there.
right.
And those employees that used to work the checkout are still working, but now they're picking products because so many people are having their
Right.
things picked up at the door. So it's just a reallocation. And as I mentioned, you either get left behind or you jump on board and you move with the future. And it's all about creating solutions. We live in the world of the gig economy.
Oh, right.
So we get to make our own future and use technologies as it seemed fit. When I was in marketing, I am not very creative drawing wise. So when things like Canva came
Yeah.
into fruition, my copyright, the people that I worked on copyright, they didn't lose their job. They were able to handle more clients, and they
Right.
were able to have bigger clients as a result. So, as I mentioned, I embrace it.
And things like generative art, like Dolly and Night Cafe. Have you played around with that at all?
No, I haven't, but I've heard about it.
Oh man, you could just like give it prompts like you give Chat GPT prompts, and instead of spitting out text, it spits out images.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's amazing. I mean, think about that, like what sort of implications that has on marketing and on graphic design. It's some amazing stuff that they are putting out there.
I'm
How do you keep up with technology trends? I mean, specifically the ones that are that impact your sort of field, but any of them.
Well, you're gonna love this. I use technology.
Yeah.
So I of course I read the Wall Street Journal, and I have some technology resources where they'll give me articles with keywords. It's almost like if you're looking for a
Hmm,
job and you say I want a marketing job, and they'll start feeding you those jobs. I
okay.
do that with newspapers. So
Oh,
I'm an avid reader of newspapers, marketing publications, whatever I can get my hands on. I love current events and what's going on in the future. I just love learning about it. I could do it 24/7.
oh, really? Okay. Well, excellent. Um, I so one of the things that I'm really interested in is studying if the interaction that students are having with the AI is at the same sort of quality level, because you keep saying it's not a replacement, right? It's just another sort of another avenue. How would we how can we explore that? Like what type of outcomes do you look for in your clients and in your students? And I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to like compare. Do you have a
Yeah.
before and an after snapshot of when you didn't have as much AI and now that you do, and what the differences are?
Yeah, so I use AI, but I use it with skepticism. So
Okay.
I don't trust it blindly, whatever
Right.
output they use, but I love it for market research. I use it
Oh,
quite a bit for market research because market research is tedious.
uh,
It's you just compile information, and if I can have something print out the results for me, why not embrace that?
right.
Um, I I do use it quite often for that. And
Mhm.
I just lost my train of thought where I was going with that.
Well, it seems like for my students, I love generating the ideas in front of them. So I teach, like for instance, the most recent lesson I gave was how to generate arguments about a topic that voting should be mandatory. And I'm like, all right, let's take a look at what ChatGPT says are the three best arguments for it. And then you look it over and you're like, look at that. That's not true. Like ChatGPT still lies sometimes. It
Yeah.
still hallucinates. And I'm like, see, it's not a replacement for research. It's really great to outline your ideas. It's really great to give you a beautiful bullet pointed layout of something. But I show them, it's like, see what's in body point 2, that should move up to body point 1, and you should strike this thing in body point 3 because it doesn't really say anything. And so that experience, I'm hoping, like makes people, when they use Chat GPT, not just when I use it in front of them, but when they use it, they are also skeptical. I'm hoping that actually generates more creativity. I'm worried about the inverse though. I'm worried that people are like, oh, there it is, just I'm gonna
Yes.
hand this in,
Yes.
and I'm done.
And one thing I always share with my students, and with the culture that we live in, a tweet that you wrote 20 years ago can come back and haunt you, right?
Yeah.
So I always remind them, your name is on this and it's permanent. You
Right.
need to remember that when you are outlining this, when you are going through this. And I have a fun exercise with ChatGPT because, like a Google search, when we first learned how to use Google,
Yeah.
there's little ins and outs. For
Yeah.
Google, you can use exclamation,
Quotation
parentheses
mark.
or quotations, whatever it be. And I think that's going to be the same for Chat GPT. I think that there's going to be a little guidance that we can use in the future. And I'm really excited to see that there's so many players. out there.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think we're going to get a lot of diversity of thought in that. That is one thing that I did have a little bit of nervousness about, wasn't a lot of diversity. I know they have some problems in Silicon Valley right now with not having enough diversity in some
Right.
instances. So you're going to get a certain result as a result of that. You know, it's almost like everyone goes to the potluck and brings the same thing when you want a little bit of everything there.
Absolutely. Kathy, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this. It was a great discussion.
Thank you.
All right. So I hope that we can do something like this again. Keep in touch. And
I
then
would love that.
everybody, thank you for joining us.
Well,
all right.
thanks for all the work you do, Jared. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Bye.